Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel. Bluegrass Trapper here. This is a couple of days after our Southern Kentucky Trapping and Outdoor event. All in all, not a bad event. 150 plus people showed up. I was pretty happy with that for an old redneck Amish trapper. But I filmed some of the classes or demonstrations that were done at our event. I'm getting ready to post this one by Micah Seavers on beaver trapping. I have a couple more to post after this one. You'll probably see next week. Before we get into it, I also wanted to mention that I will be in Indiana this coming up Saturday, September 27th, at the Hoosier Trappers Rendezvous. Hope to see some of you guys there, and I guess I'll catch y'all somewhere down the line. Tight chains.
I will, on average, catch between 750 and 800 beaver a year. That's in Kentucky. I trap Tennessee and Mississippi for beaver as well. I get contracted to do big properties in Mississippi, and the Water Drainage Board in Mississippi, the state of Mississippi, has me come down and trap for them. And so I do okay. My ways are not going to be the best way, maybe not the way you want to do it, but it's my way and I'm willing to share it. Mr. Billy Nelms, he's passed away now, but he told me a long time ago, he called himself a sight trapper. He loved water trapping, but he called himself a sight trapper. And the nice thing about beaver is they generally tell you where you need to trap. Beaver, 9 times out of 10, will give you everything you need to catch them. And I'd rather trap them than anything else, so we'll talk about the different tools we use and kind of go from there. And like Ronnie mentioned, I am a nuisance trapper, so I trap everywhere from at the lakes and the marinas, people's docks and ponds, to creeks and watersheds, and basically, if it can be trapped for beaver, I've done it. From chemical spillage ponds to the uranium plant there in Paducah. If there's water and it's had beaver, I have caught them in it. So, we'll talk about a little bit of everything, different scenarios. All right, there we go. So, and the nice part about trapping beaver is about the same time you're trapping beaver, you can trap otters about the exact same way. It's more about looking and learning and kind of figuring out where you're at. But we'll talk about the very first tool that pretty much everybody starts beaver trapping with. It's a 330. Now, the only trouble with a 330 is you got boys, like see this young man, he don't have much muscle, real small armed here, you can tell. So he's going to have trouble setting this. So you're going to have to get a fellow like this to come help him. And so maybe his sister could probably help him, something like that. And so the nice part about 330s is when you catch them, they're dead. But is this the first thing that we want to take and show a younger man to trap? Well, yeah, we need to show him. But the trouble is him setting it. It's him setting it's going to be the problem. So we will. Here, set that for me. You want to try? So the problem is setting them. I got setters. So they've made all kinds of different setters. There's this style, there's a caulking gun style, there's a style that you step on and you pull up. How many of you folks here used a rope back in the day? Just used a rope to set. There's 100 different ways to do it. I will say this. There is no shame in carrying a rope in your pocket, because if you've ever been caught in one, you want every avenue possible to be able to get yourself out. So the worst thing I've ever had happen is I got caught both hands behind the knuckles. Both hands behind the knuckles, and that right there, you sit there and you go, well, what do I do now? Found me a tree that was a nice V-shaped. I dropped it down in there, and I leaned against it until my hands popped out. Learned a lesson. Pay better attention. I got that ADHD everybody talks about. I'm all over the place. But the thing is it all becomes about motion when you're learning how to set the 330s. When it gets real cold, I start using my setters. Until then, it's all by hand, and it's all fluid motion and learning what you're doing, like handling anything else. And you can set them just fine. But, so, what I like to start young people out on is snares. That is the most versatile tool we have in your trapping bag. right there. And the nice part about this is we wade swamps. I may wade 2-3 miles back into a swamp. I know I don't look like I wade 2 or 3 miles into a swamp, and all y'all thinking, no, you don't, fat boy. But I do. I just eat a lot. I like food, you know. But so something to have in your arsenal is definitely snares. The big thing about snares is learning to respect them. It's a lot easier to leave this out there and not check it, or leave this out there and not go back and get it, or something like that, than it is this. Because here you got $1.02. There you got $21. It's a lot easier to leave a dollar bill laying on the ground than it is a $20 bill. And that's where it comes to the ethics and staying with it and doing things like that. So snares is a very important tool. Footholds are opinion. You're going to hear one guy say, I like a MB 750 for beaver trapping. Another guy's going to say, I like number 4 double long springs. I like a TS 85. I think this is by far the #1 best beaver trap on the market, and it's my opinion. They're easy to set. You can set them very easily. They're smooth to set. Got a huge pan area there. And you laughed at the way I said huge, didn't you? I like how they're dogless. It's one less thing on them. So dogless trap means they don't have that dog that you got to turn over and put on there. It's one less motion. The less things you have to do, the better off you are. The easier it is. So foothold traps, it's another tool in the arsenal. So this right here, I'll talk about this and then we're actually going to get into how I set traps. So I watched a video years ago of a trapper that trapped off a boat at Kentucky Lake. And he would set these all, you know, on the bank and stuff and everything. So this is a 280, which is not legal on dry land, but it is legal in the water. So you can take this out in a half a foot of water and set it down. You'll catch coons and everything like that. What I use them for, so let's say we're out here in this water and we got this log sitting out there. And that water kind of goes up and down a little bit. You got rain coming in, maybe it's the river, or you got a dock that's floating. It's going up and down with the water. So I tie these off to the side of that, and I'll tie it where it's half of it's in the water. And no matter which way it has to go, sometimes we tie them off like this, sometimes like this, just depending on how everything's laid out. So now this stays legal because it stays in the water. It travels up and down with that water, up and down with that water. And I like to take, if I'm using it for otters, I like to take, and I'll take half of a catfish head, or there's old carp everywhere, take me a big old chunk of carp, and I'll tie it off in the back of this, and I'll hang that up. And we absolutely waylay the otters that way. But we started doing some with 330s, made them a little bigger. And so then what I do is we get these marina jobs where we're out on these docks, and the beaver have gone up underneath the docks, and they're chewing out the docks, and they're just living in the dock floats is what they'll do. They chew out the whole dock floats, and they'll live inside those dock floats. So we'll hang these off those docks, and I'll take a sponge, and I take my caster lure, and I soak it in that caster, that sponge. I hang that sponge in the back of this. And we hang those up, and we catch a blue million beaver that way when we're working the lakes. But the nice thing about this is it keeps it stable, keeps it down in the water. You're not having to try to rub caster all over their marina dock or whatever, but it allows you to adjust with the water. So if you're out of the lake or a river or something where the water keeps changing, and you're on something that's floating up and down, whether it be a log or a float from a dock or whatever, it allows it to stay legal the whole time. And it's out in the water a little bit, and we have really good luck with it. And these are easy to make. There's nothing hard to make out of that. I will say this, they're trap specific, because let's say if you want to go with 330s and you use Duke 330s. Duke 330s are 9 by 10, where like a Bridger 330 is a 10 by 10. So you've got to make these, whatever trap you're using, you've got to make sure they fit that trap and the trigger system on that, make sure it's going to come up and everything like that. Is there any questions about this? This right here is just a handy tool, just something neat and something, I'll be honest with you, a kid can make this and have him something extra to do. You can knock them down to 220 size. Who here use bucket traps to catch coons and stuff, kill sets? You can take this exact concept, knock it down a size to 220s, and these are super handy, and they will catch excellent and drive a stake in the back of it. It stays right where it's supposed to be. We have really good luck with them. The animals are able to see the stuff, and they make it where they can't get to the bait. that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's just a neat tool. And to be honest with you, that's the one thing I thought, so I'm going to bring it this time to this because it's neat. I enjoy it. I think it's neat. I'm easy to please. So there you go. Just like I said with the traps, a lot of trapping is opinion based. One guy's going to like this over another. There's nothing new in trapping. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing new. You're going to hear, oh man, I've made this. I've made that. This is new. I've come up with this idea or that idea. You have not. You have modified an older idea. People have been trapping since the time of the Bible. I'll tell you what, whoever can tell me, whatever kid can tell me, who was the best trapper in the Bible, I'm going to give them this TS-85 whenever I get done. Who was the best trapper in the Bible? Come on now. Y'all read the Bible, don't you? Come on. Nope, not Noah. Best trapper in the Bible. He caught 300 of something in one day. Come on now. Was that an adult that answered that? You just ruined it for all the kids. Yeah. See, that's why I told you I don't like adults. They mess up everything. Well, why didn't you say it? If you knew it, why didn't you say it? Don't count now. I'll come up with something else. But Samson caught 300 foxes, tied firebrands to them, and burned the Philistines' fields. See? It's okay. I figured somebody'd get it. Have some heathen kid out there get it. No, but yeah. So I'm going to start by showing snaring for beaver. And so one of the number one things to recognize whenever you're snaring for beaver is the size of the loop. Okay, so grown man's average size hand from pinky to thumb is 8.5 to 9 inches. That is exactly where you want to be at with your beaver on this. Thanks, buddy. So, size of your hand, okay? Size of your hand. Because we're not trying to catch them around the body if we can avoid it. We don't want to catch them mid-body. That's not what we're going for. We're trying to catch them right behind the head for shoulders. But beaver are shaped a little funny compared to catching coyotes and stuff. So sometimes you'll catch them mid-body, and that's fine. You hear people talk about fur damage and leather damage with snares. I have been snaring as long as I have anything else, and I've caught hundreds and hundreds of beaver. I have maybe had 2 over the years that got caught and had any damage. So not really something that I concern myself with. Next nice thing about beaver is, and snaring, is you can snare them on dry land or you can snare them down to the water level. We're allowed to trap with snares wherever we want. So the nice thing about that is we can do that. So let's say that this is actually a river bank and this is steep. It's a steep drop off that we got right here. So now I'm not going to go off down this river bank and be so close to the river because I don't have good footing or whatever. Safety first. There's no beaver worth falling in a river for. It's just not. It's just not worth it. So make sure your safety first. You can catch that beaver up here at the bank just as easy as you can down here at the water. There's no problem with that. So the key there is this. So we've got this beavers coming down this bank, right? So first thing to remember about beaver is they are short. Beaver are short little stubby critters. They don't walk tall. They don't stay tall. So unlike with coyotes and bobcats and foxes where we're going to be way up above the ground, this is not what you want to do. What I prefer to do is to come, and so we've got where this is starting to drop off the bank, okay? So I'm going to take my snare, and I'm going to take my nice little snare stabilizer. You don't have to use a snare stabilizer, obviously, but they are handy and they're easy. You got some old metal rod laying around and some heavy gauge wire. You can make a bunch of those real simple. If you don't have that, guess what? You can just cut your wire and just use that with a stick. It don't make no difference. And I doubted I was going to be able to get that in there. This is harder than rock. So we're going to hang this right. Hey, you mind to stand right there and hold that? You mind to reach over and hold that? Look at that. There you go. Look at the skill there. Talent. And so the nice thing about these is it just helps make it go faster. So like sometimes if I got a big snare line I'm putting out, I will go out and I already have my snares connected up to it and everything. And so again, this is not what's going to hold our animal. We're not looking for this to hold the animal at all. But I like to come right off the drop, right where it starts to drop down off of the bank. If it's super steep, I will turn this up a little bit where it's kind of angled, where it's facing like this, where it's flowing with the drop. If it's like this, it's not super steep. I'm wanting to go 2 inches above the ground, 2 fingers, above the ground level with that, just off the drop, just right where it starts to go down. And this is where I want to catch my beavers, right here. So now we got to talk about stabilizing this, staking this down. If you've got real wet soil, like a lot of the places we trap, it's so pumpy and just so wet. There's no driving a stake in the ground to do it. So now we've got to tie off. We got to tie off to something, whether it be a tree or whatever it is. So let's say you're tying off to a tree. Main thing there, do not, whatever you do not tie off to a small tree. Tie off to a bigger tree. The bigger the better. And tie it as low to the ground level as you can. And the reason for that is, for whatever reason, I don't know the science behind it. I just know I have caught thousands of beaver, and this has stood true through every one of them that I've done like this. If they can't see what they're tied to, they will chew everything else except for what they're tied to. They will chew everything else down. All they had to do was chew that one, but they will chew everything else but that. And so that rings true even more so at the water level. So y'all really can't see this, so I'm not going to take time to get down in the water with this. But so just like with that, but let's say we're snaring them in the water. We're at the water level. So now, instead of it being 2 inches above the ground, we want to go 2 inches under the water. So you don't want to have this thing halfway under the water. You just want a couple inches of it. Now, if you get out there and it's knocked down a little bit or something like that, you've got 2 options on that. It could have been waves. You know, you'll have ripples in the water. They'll slowly knock that snare and just make it drag down, because you like for your snare to be fairly quick. So you got to kind of watch that, because those waves will just hit it like this, and they'll slowly make it slide down. So that's something you watch for. But if that's the case, you can always drop it down a little bit and adjust it. So when I'm setting out, if I'm setting out in the water, let's say we had a tree out in the middle, and I want to set that tree up, I will take and cable this off to the base of that tree underneath the water level. You want this under the water level. So you tie this off under the water level. You're going to set this up. I like to go 6 inches away from the tree, 2 to 3 inches under the water is all you want. Just like that, 6 inches away from your tree. Take your caster and you smear it up about 3 feet up that tree. Well, now what you've done, the goal is to catch that beaver and that beaver be alive. So now you've got every beaver being active. So now you set it heavy. If you're in a pond or in a creek or a swamp, you want to set it heavy all the way around that, every little trail coming and going. That actually is something that I watched Kirk DelCab do. Kirk DelCab he no longer traps. He has gotten Alzheimer's and older, but he's from Georgia. He was probably the biggest numbers trapper for beaver in the United States. We're talking 4,000 or 5,000 beaver a year. And I mean, he was the man. So, you know, it's this little trick. Like I said, nothing new. There's nothing new. But he does that, and he always considered an attractant to the other beaver. And I noticed that to be true, especially out in the swamps. I do duck holes, a lot of duck hunting farms. If you're looking for places to beaver trap, and you know guys that duck hunt, that's who you talk to. If they've got some slough they've made or some pond they've made, talk to them. They're going to have muskrat problems. They're going to have beaver problems. They're going to have otter problems. Because the last thing they want is their levee getting washed out with those beaver and otter and muskrats going over it and tunneling into them. So go to your duck hunters and say, hey, I don't want to trap until February, because duck season is over in February. Tell them you don't want to trap their stuff until February, because that's their biggest concern. That's why they want to keep you out of there, is because their dog. You know, they got this dog they've spent all this money on, or they don't want to mess up their duck hunting. So just ask them if you can go out in February. So that's how you gain beaver trapping ground from your duck hunters. And if they say, well, the beaver control my water, and remind them that eventually the beaver will control it however they want. It's not, don't ever trust a rodent to do your work. Granted, they'll hold a lot of water for guys, but that water will still be there, and they'll get more beaver. You just got to learn how to talk them into it. And we gain all kinds of trapping ground, talking guys into letting us do it. The last 10 days of February, I've got guys that come from all over the United States, and they trap with me. And we trap probably 125,000 acres. And so we just kind of go everywhere. So I tell people all the time, permission is easy to gain if you know how to talk to people. Big thing, dress clean. When you go to talk to them, dress nice. Dress nice. Take a dog-proof trap or two with you. Take some of your other traps with you. Show them what you're going to use. Know how to talk to them. Make it benefit them. If you're talking about coons, their cornfield, their chickens, they're digging up their flower beds. If it's somebody that's got a little fancier house, they ain't got chickens, They got land, but they don't have chickens or corn or nothing like that. They just got a nice house. Flower beds. Coons digging up the flower beds. Coons out there digging up their yard. Make it benefit them. And then that's how you get your ground. Talk nice, talk polite. Don't ever growl. If they say no, I totally understand. Thank y'all very much. If you change your mind, holler at me sometime. Here's where I'm at. You would be surprised how many people call later on. I got to thinking about that. Why don't you come try it this year for coons? Well, so you start with coons and you go from there. So, that's how we go from there. So, you may notice that this 330 is green. There's a reason. I don't dye them black. I don't dye them brown because beaver can see those two colors. Green blends into everything for beaver. They are colorblind to it. They can see green, but they cannot distinguish it, separate it from anything else. You'll hear a lot of guys talk about beaver becoming trap shy. So I don't believe that beaver become trap shy as easily as people make it out to be. I think what they become is stabilizing shy. You see, and I've done it, and I still do it. There are times where you've got sticks on both sides of it sticking up everywhere. And it's all awkward, and something's not right. Take those sticks. If you're stabilizing with the beaver sticks, they give you all your tools to set your traps. Beaver do. Beaver are nice like that. They give you all the tools to kill them. If you're putting your sticks in there and that's what you're using to hold your trap down, drive them in as far as you can. Break them off. If you can't get them all the way in, take some reeds or brush that's around it and cover over the top of your springs. Cover those sticks over. I think they notice that as much as they do anything else. Do I think they start noticing traps too? Sure. I think you get some educated beaver, but I think I see more that get educated because people do too much guarding, too much fencing. I think that's what causes the education on beaver with that. So there's all kinds of different schools of thought on setting this 330 in the water. Some guys, they want to set them upside down like this, with your triggers like this. Some guys want them right side up. Some guys take that trigger and they'll bend it completely over like this and have one straight. It all becomes preference. But I will say this, if you are on top of your otter limit and you are pretty well done and you don't want to catch a bunch of otters, take those triggers and bend them all the way up like that and do it right side up and you will miss otters that way. Just because I don't like to see them go to waste. I'll just be honest with you. And otherwise, and like when we're doing nuisance work, we try to avoid otters as much as possible because obviously during the summer we just got to turn them into the state. Which they let me keep them most time just for skinning demos, and then we have to dispose of them. So, 330s, that's a great tool. Would you get out of the way, goofball? Stand over here. Go, shoot. Take your kid to work with you today. So, my 14-year-old daughter is actually our big trapper in the family, as far as the kids go. I got a 14-year-old daughter. She catches all kinds of bobcats and coyotes every year. She dispatches and skins on her own and everything else. So, like I said, that one boy, that's only he could find his sister. Maybe she could help him, But, what buddy? And so, when we are trapping with 330s, you'll have guys that think that they need to be halfway under the water, halfway, out of the water. You got guys that want them all the way under the water. Everything becomes preference, guys. As long as it's set legal, that's the biggest concern. Stabilize them down. The one big thing you don't want is this 330 rocking back and forth like this. You want it to be stable. So I usually take and I keep metal T-bar stakes with me. I drive them down the sides all the way down, and that right there, and that'll lock in and that'll hold you where you need to go on both sides. I've got deep water stabilizers. That's one thing I was going to bring, but I really didn't have room for it. And those are nice for your runs. Again, beaver will pretty much tell you where they're going to be. If you've got a big dam, so here's one thing I like to do, but I want you to also put into mind that when I go into a place, the idea is that I'm going to catch everything there. They want me to catch everything. You may not want to do that if you're going into spots you want to trap next year too. So the thing to do is, say you got a big dam there. It's a creek, it's a little river, it's a pond. They got the spillway dammed up. I like to go in before I ever set the first trap, and I'll bust that dam about halfway out. I'll let the beaver get real active with it, and then I go in. You can really see where they're running, really see where they're doing stuff. During the wintertime, beaver gets serious, especially as you go into spring, and this is why I'm pushing for March for our beaver season. beaver start getting real possessive. They get real territorial and everything. So beaver give you the tool to catch other beaver. Who here has ever taken a caster out of a beaver? So you take that caster gland out. So when I first got started years and years ago trapping, I was young. I didn't have as much money as I do now, and my wife says I don't have as much money as I do now too. So because we got 5 kids, kids are expensive. Hey, Kyle, you got to feed them things. Did you know that? Like every day, like you got to feed them every day. And so I would take and cut the caster out. Like let's say I'm trapping this pond over here on one end of the county, and I know I'm going over here to this end of the county. I'd cut that caster out and take me a pop bottle. I'd cut that caster open, and I'd get it all cut up, and I'd put it in that pop bottle, and I'd use that creek water or pond water, and I'd shake it up. And I just use poor man's caster. And you could use that caster, man. You could make 20, 30 cents before that caster was wore out, if not more. And so I did that for years. So you don't have to go buying special stuff. You don't have to go, ordering the biggest, fanciest things. If you don't want to spend the money right at first, you want to kind of figure it out, you can just cut that caster out. Drop it in a bottle of water, you're good to go. The problem you got to watch is if it gets freezing cold. Now, you got to watch it freezing up. But now I make my own. And then there's all kinds of them on the market. You got Dobbin's Backbreaker. That is consistently probably across the world known as to be one of the best beaver lures out there. Southern Snares makes some really awesome lure. You've got Bearded Man Beaver Lure. They all have their place. I have a cabinet at my shop that is, I would not want to add up how much money is sitting in that cabinet of stuff I use and don't use. And so caster's one of those things. So if anybody here have a sawmill or know somebody with a sawmill? Okay. So if you are cutting poplar, if you're cutting cherry, take some of that sawdust and hang on to it. And then take your caster, grind that caster up, get you some glycerin, Vaseline will work, and mix it and use that as your backer for your bait. Use that sawdust. Now again, nothing's new, but I have had about 100 trappers use my lure. I just give it away. I don't sell nothing. I give all kinds of stuff away. And they're like, that's sawdust in there. I said, it is. They're like, why doesn't everybody use sawdust? I'm like, I don't know. It's cheap, and I'm a cheap guy. And so yeah, so that's what I'd use there. And that's the thing, a dab will do you with caster. Here you go. You can have it. A dab will do you with caster. It doesn't take a whole lot. And said if you buy the stuff that's on the market, it doesn't take much of that either. So foothold trapping beaver. Front foot, back foot, it becomes on what you want to catch. Back foot catch, if you got shallow water, is not the best. If you got shallow water, try to go for a front foot because you want your head down in that water. If you got deep enough water, I don't care whether you catch front or back. It makes me no difference. So you can have drowners on a cable. You can have drowners on a rebar stake. You can have fiberglass rod. You can use chain. It all depends on how you want to set it up. It all depends on how you're having to carry it. I can tell you right now, when I'm walking in, I don't carry rebar stakes. I don't carry big rebar drowning rods when I'm going way far in. I don't like carrying fiberglass drowning rods. I will carry a cable. And then TS-85s are already so heavy. A lot of times, sometimes we don't even take where we weight them down. We just take chain, and I'll wire them off with chain or chain them off, and I'll have 8 foot of chain, and 9 times out of 10, they get out there, they sink, and they're dead. If not, they're still there in the morning. But so the big thing is if you're using cable or you're using a chain, is the weight on the end of it. Window weights are great. If you see somebody tearing down an old house, they'll say, hey, can I get the window weights out of that house? 9 times out of 10, they'll let you go get them old window weights. You can get the really long ones. Those are nice. You've hit pay dirt there because all you need is one of them. If you get the little short ones, you need 2 of them. They're easy to put in a tote, in a milk crate or something. Easy to carry. Otherwise, if you're in a rocky area, I don't know, do y'all's creeks have more rocks in them up here? Y'all have rocky creeks? You got rocks? We don't. We are all mud, 100% mud. If you find a rock anywhere in our town, somebody put it there. Like, we don't have rocks. We have sand and mud and dirt. So we don't have all the nice big rocks. Otherwise, you can take you a sack, take you a corn sack with you, take you a feed sack, and you can put some rocks in it. You can put sand or mud in it, and it'll work. It's just a lot extra. But you take it, you put your rocks in there, you tie your sack off, and you throw it out there in your water. Big thing is, if you don't sit down, we'll whoop your butt. And the big thing is to make sure you don't have any tangling factors on the way down there to it. No logs, no limbs, no brush, no bushes, things like that. Because you want it to be able to travel all the way down this cable. You know, so you're going to stake it down up here really well. And you want it to travel all the way down that cable. You want it to go all the way down, all the way down. And you want it to end up out in that water. So like this pond right here, I would be going front foot catch because it's fairly shallow. Now I'm probably going to go this direction with it because you've got this limbs and stuff right here. So I'm going to go this direction with it. And even at that, this pond's pretty shallow. So there's a good chance he's going to be out there and not be dead. He's liable to be standing up there looking at you when you get there like, what's going on with me? So that's where it comes key to staking it down to your bank well enough. If you have to tie it off, cable it off, or drive a stake in the ground, make sure you can't pull it out because then you're going to have a whole other mess on your hands. But so when I'm traveling with footholds, if the water was full, y'all have had it dry too like we have. If the water was all the way up, I'd be able to show this a little easier, so I'll show it without using the water. So when I'm setting with footholds, front foot catch, so you take your fist and you put it in the bank. Front foot catch is pan halfway up your forearm. Back foot catch is pan at your elbow. That's how you judge it. If you got little short stubby arms, just add some length to it. If you got really ridiculous long arms, then take some off, you know, but you can kind of get the gist for the idea there. You've got guys that will set like this. You got guys that will set like this to this. Whatever fits your preference. Learn how you want to do it. Beaver trapping, land trapping, it doesn't matter what you do. I tell people learn 3 really good sets. Learn 3 sets and do really well at them. And then start playing with all these other goofy sets these guys make. Learn 3 sets and do it really, really well. Set your slides, set your runs, learn how to make a caster mount set. Learn 3 easy sets that you can learn to get really, 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 really good at it. Then go from there. You don't have to know 150 different ways to set traps. They weren't, you know, coyote trapping and stuff. You know what caught more coyotes than any other set ever? A dirt hole set. You know how long they've been doing them? Hundreds of years. Why change it? Same thing with beaver sets. Back in the fur days when it was blowing out, they were setting slides, they were setting runs. Why do we have to go and invent new ways to do something that created this country, that helped build this country the way it was? The big thing when you're setting these footholds is if like us, if you get in a real muddy spot, you want to make sure that you've got a base there that's going to hold it. That's not just going to slip out and it's going to sink in the mud. So a lot of times what we'll do is if I'm setting a real muddy, swampy spot, I'll take some limbs or something like that or some reeds and I'll put underneath that trap just to kind of keep it from burying down quite so bad. So that's something you really got to watch. Make sure your spot's good and stable. The big thing with beaver is if I'm setting this right here, I'm going to get some mud from the bottom of this pond. I'm going to slide up there, make it look good and fresh, make it look like something's been there. You can take limbs off of a fresh green tree and scrape them up real good, real white. Visual is a lot. It's a lot with everything. If they can see it, they're curious about it. But beaver are very territorial. People have a real misconception that beaver want to have a bunch of other beaver with them. They don't. All these caster mounds you'll see up going down the river, that's them marking their spot. This is mine. This is the property line. You stay on your side. I'll stay on my side. You go to catching beaver, especially during the springtime, they'll have bites all in them. Beaver are vicious. Beaver will kill each other. I caught a beaver about 3 years ago. His tail was this long, and it was like a little triangle. And that beaver's tail had been chewed completely off by other beaver. That's all he had left was a little bitty tiny tail. And so that's where like your caster comes in key. Poplar bud oil is a super good attractant. You know, if you're going for a food attractant, anything with poplar bud oil in it. Your soft trees. But like I said, if you got a sawmill where you're cutting poplar and stuff and you got some really fresh stuff there, use it. Take it with you. Take that real bright sawdust with you, a handful of it, throw it up on the bank. They're going to see that. They see it at night. It shines, the moon shining on it. They see it. They notice it. So that's just something really to watch out for. I feel like I've really not done very well because I haven't been down in the water, and I feel like I've kind of let y'all down a little bit on this demo. Do y'all have questions? Yes, sir. Yeah. MB750s are a great trap. So I am not a fan of feed sacks. And the reason is is, especially when you fill them with dirt. Now, rocks are not as bad. It's because they don't hold. They drag, they scoot. You're talking an animal that can cut a tree down, that's 600 pounds worth of tree, and they're just pushing it around in the water. So yeah, we have to consider that. Beaver are strong. They are a horribly strong animal, so it's really something that we've got to focus on whenever we're doing anything. So when I use a feed sack, what I have in the past, it's been with rocks because they will dig in, because they will hold. Mud and sand, guys do it. They do it a lot. And I have just never, when you're dealing with something that's all mud, the problem is you can just drag that around on that bottom. And so, you know, at that point, concrete window weights sink. They sink in and they'll hold like a drag wheel. A concrete block will work. Old hubcap or old wheel hub. That's the thing. Carrying heavy stuff, it's like, yeah, is it worth it? And that's where we do the long chains. So we'll have 6-8 foot of chain on our trap. We stake it off really well. And one of two things. Either they go out there and it drags them down, or they're waiting for you when you're there. And I have yet to lose one that way. The biggest thing is to make sure what they're going to tangle up on. That's your biggest concern. Because they will wrench off. Because amazingly, as strong as a beaver is and as industrial as they are, you can take their foot and basically rip that thing off. Like it's nothing to break a beaver's foot. Like, I mean, it's nothing. So you got to watch that while you're doing everything. Any other questions? Here you go, young man. It's yours. Here you go. Take it. Yeah, so this I won't give anybody. No, but yeah, so this right here, this is something, and it's helpful, especially if you've got kids trapping with you or something, because you can take and make these, and you can stack them up in the back of a wagon, and they can already preset before you leave a house, and you can take the safeties off of them and just set them out real fast and easy. They're strictly size, like I said, size of your trap is important with this. But you can pre-bait them, especially if it's cold out. You can hang your fish heads in there. Like I said, I'll take that caster and I will wetten it down real good, put sponges in it, and I'll just take a hook and just hook them inside of there. And so there's a lot of advantages to doing that. That's like when he was talking about DPs. You can preset your DPs with a dowel rod and have them all set. You know, the less you can do going out and about, the better off you are. Somebody's in trouble. What'd y'all do? It was you. It was you. No. Yep, it was you. All right, guys. Thank y'all very much. I'm sorry I felt really scattered today. Had a lot going on last few days, and I'm gonna head out to West Virginia. Y'all enjoy the rest of the show. Thank y'all for showing up. Thank you, Enos, for inviting me, and thank y'all for putting this on. You and the other gentlemen that lead this. That's great, and you helping being involved, and everybody else that's involved. Thank y'all. Trapping's super important, guys. It helped found this country. It helped pave the way to the West and everything else. It's been around since the Bible. I feel like if God let Samson do it that good, we should be doing it good too. So, thank y'all.
Thanks, Micah.
Oh, you're welcome. And like I mentioned, so we do a big thing in the end of February, and anybody and everybody is welcome. And we actually have a whole camp. We have 51 beds. So we will have 20 beds left over because we got 30 guys coming out this year. Anybody ever wants to make a trip down to West Kentucky? The whole point of that 10 days is education. So the guys take guys with them. They teach skinning and everything in the shop after that. There's no charge for any of that. I don't charge for education, never have. So there you go. Guys, thank y'all. Y'all have a great day.